Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Father-Son Packers podcast, your brand new source for Packers news, notes, and analysis. My name is Tommy, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, my dad, Matt. Dad, how are you doing?
Doing all right. It's Friday. We're
that
a little
it
late
is.
Today.
We are a
Day
little
off.
late. Apologies for that. We normally do our pre-games on Thursday, but we had a bit of a scheduling conflict, so we are here with you on Friday.
You going to tell them what that scheduling conflict was?
That scheduling conflict was I was going to see Black Panther Wakanda Forever on
Wakanda
opening
Forever.
night. No matter what, I was going to see
There
it on
you
opening
go.
night. It was a great movie. 10 out of 10 would recommend. Not going to spoil anything, but it was very beautifully done. Anyway, but we are here to preview the Packers' upcoming matchup against the Cowboys on Sunday. We bring these previews to you usually every Thursday, sometimes on Fridays like today, and then we do post-games every Sunday night or right after the game. So if you enjoy what you listen to here, don't be afraid to come join us for future episodes, and don't be afraid to come follow us on Twitter while it is still existing. At FatherSonPacker on at FatherSonPacker on Twitter.
Sucked into a black hole of its own making.
Yes, at FatherSonPacker on Twitter. Come give us a follow. FatherSon Packers podcast on YouTube. Come subscribe. Those would both really help our numbers, and we would really appreciate it. From those, we tweet out articles that we find interesting, Packers news, notes, and updates, and when we put out new episodes. So if you want to come give us a follow, we'd appreciate it. But Dad, do you want to get down to it?
Sure. Let's get to our news and notes, injury report, and everything.
Yeah, so the main...
Packers had a new addition this week.
Yes, a couple of new additions, actually. The main one is they got waivers on Jonathan Abram, a former first-round pick by the Las Vegas Raiders. Almost said Oakland, although they might have been Oakland Raiders at the time of his drafting, so I could have been right either way. Safety has really struggled so far for the Raiders, and so they released him. Weren't able to find a partner during the trade deadline, which apparently they were looking for. And the Packers claimed him on waivers. The Broncos also put in a claim, but they were lower in priority. And so the Packers have Jonathan Abram.
Having more losses. We got more losses just so we could get Jonathan Abram.
Yes, but Jonathan Abram, I would say don't expect too much. Bisaccia, I think, probably vouched for him because he can probably play a good amount of special teams, but really struggled at safety and coverage especially for the Raiders. So just don't expect too much. They might play him a little bit at linebacker, but we'll talk about that later. And then they also added, I believe, receiver, is it Jeffrey Cotton, to the practice squad?
Oh, to the practice squad.
Or Cotton Packers. What was his... Jeff Cotton, yes. To the practice squad. Another receiver.
Okay.
Don't think it's going to have too much impact on the team as a whole, but just figured we'd give you that update. So, Dad, do you want to get down to the injury report?
Let's talk about the injury report. It started off massive. What were there, like 17 players at the first report? Now that we've gotten through Friday and we've actually got the game status estimates.
Only 7 will be carrying designations into the weekend. So for the Packers, those 7 are Rashawn Gary being sent to IR with his torn ACL, unfortunately. Eric Stokes with an ankle and knee. Matt LaFleur said today that he is also probably going to be out for the year. So 2 pretty huge blows to the youth core of this Packers defense. Really sucks to see Gary. He was kind of the main reason for watching the team.
The bright spot on the team.
Yeah, and it was mostly just how many sacks is he going to get this year. But, wishing him the best. Hopefully he can recover and come back strong next year.
Yeah, I just want to give a shout-out to Rashawn telling Enagbare that he's going to be, behind him. And Enagbare saying, shouldn't it be the other way around?
Yeah, but so, Gary's just a really good leader. He's a really good voice in that room, and it's nice that they'll at least have him for that as they have to lean on their youth a lot more going forward. Devondre Campbell with his knee is still going to be out. He didn't play last game either, so kind of the same deal.
Yeah, and I just want to say that I think it was LaFleur's that we said he'd been hitting the rehab really hard, but still only DNPs this week and not ready yet this week.
Yeah, and then Romeo Doubs is going to miss 4 to 6 weeks with his ankle injury, so he is out this weekend. Shamar John-Charles is also out. He has not played in several weeks, I think.
It's been a while. I don't know what that... I mean, we didn't really hear about what happened and how it got... Because it was just the first practice. I forget which game it was, but I didn't even notice it happen on the field. It must have been a special teams play or something.
Play, yeah.
Near the end of the game, I guess.
Yeah, which really sucks because they could use the corner help right now with Stokes being out. And then going forward, David Bakhtiari is going to be questionable with his knee. Seems like that's just going to be I mean,
Standard.
is there any better adjective? Is there a better adjective for David Bakhtiari's status than questionable? It's
that
perfectly
status
made
needs
for
to
him.
be updated at half or after every drive.
No, he's just questionable eternally.
Right, that's what I
Every
mean.
drive, he is questionable to go. Like, it is what it is. It's really unfortunate that this has become what it is, but I think you should not expect him to ever not carry an injury status into a weekend at this point, I think. Chris Barnes is doubtful with concussion. I'd imagine they don't let him play.
Probably
Although we
not,
did get good news that Christian Watson did not actually sustain a concussion over the weekend. They just were holding him out for precautionary reasons, which I think is really awesome from the Packers.
Right.
Always
And
good
they
to
also
protect
said
the players.
that he actually got hit in the shoulder on that play, supposedly not the head at all, is what they're saying. And I guess you could see that maybe he took it on the shoulder, not the head on the replay. But so that's good. It was really kind of worrisome when the thought was he had gotten 2 concussions in consecutive weeks, which would be bad.
Yeah, that'd be almost season-ending at this point for a rookie. And then beyond that, Amari Rodgers popped up on the injury report. It was initially reported as a quad injury, but then was changed to a hamstring injury, so I would imagine he is not going to play.
It doesn't sound good when you have a new injury report on Friday after being full participant the first part of the week.
And then beyond that, seems like they are mostly going to be healthy and not carrying designations. There was some fear for Crosby with a back injury, and they brought in some kickers to work out just in case, but it looks like he's going to be good to go. Do keep an eye on him, though, because I could imagine that might affect the distance they're willing to try him from, especially in the cold. And then for the Cowboys, or Dad, do you have anything you want to add on the Packers side before?
No,
we
we just had several players that had injuries going into the week, but didn't have any designations, like Lazard, Douglas, Jenkins, Preston,
all
Watkins.
popped up at some point on the injury report, but it's nice to see that
we're limited. Many of them were limited a week, but no designation. So
yeah,
that's gorgeous. Maybe Lazard is getting healthier and healthier after his shoulder Rice Krispie injury.
He looks like he's been playing hurt, I will say.
He has been. I think he's been feeling it on some of the playing through contact. So hopefully it's getting better.
For the Cowboys, they will have 2 people listed. Ezekiel Elliott with a knee will be questionable, but it sounds like he's going to play. They are coming off their bye, just to note, so that's why their injury report is much shorter than ours. Ezekiel Elliott did not play in their last game in Week 8, however, but he is expected to play this weekend. And then Anthony Barr with a hamstring will be out this weekend. So no fears of him breaking Aaron Rodgers' collarbone again.
Again, right. And if Jerry Jones has anything to say about it, Ezekiel Elliott will be playing forever.
Yes, and for the Cowboys forever. He will never admit that was a bad contract. Never, ever in his entire life. But that is the injury report. A little more dinged up on the Packers side than the Cowboys side, but got to make do with what you got. They are coming off their bye. Should we get to the next set of our game preview, Dad?
Yeah, let's look at the blast from the past. So the last time the Packers played the Cowboys was in 2019. And the Packers won this game 34-24 in Dallas. This was the Aaron Jones game. Adams was hurt in, I think it was just the 1 week before, again near the end of the second half of the game against the Eagles. And Aaron Jones,
I don't think it was the Eagles they played the week before. I don't think
it might not have been the week
team.
before, but that was the game I think Adams got hurt in. This might not have been the very next game, but I think it was that injury that he missed.
This was 2019, correct?
Yes. Am I wrong about which injury that was?
I believe you are, but it's all right. But this was the Aaron Jones game. It was the homecoming game for Aaron Jones. He is from El Paso, right there in Texas.
So, it's
everyone in Texas is
it's a long way away.
Everyone in
Texas
is a
long way away from El Paso to Dallas. That's like Wisconsin to North Dakota.
Oh, it was the Eagles game. You are correct. I think that's the game that Devontae got his turf toe.
Right, on the right sideline, on maybe even a completed pass where he came down and got. I know that was the one he got hurt. But Jones came in. He had 4 touchdowns, 107 yards rushing, and caught 7 of 7 targets for 75 yards. He was just killing it.
Yeah, he dominated that game. And the Packers jumped out to a really early lead, and then the Cowboys kind of came charging back until Kevin King had an interception, and that kind of sealed the game out.
I forgot that was an interception at the end. That kind of put the
he kind of smacked the receiver in the head like 3 times, and they didn't call anything. And then Dak threw it right to King, and Dak actually threw 3 picks in that game. So hopefully we can carry some of that over to this.
Yeah, they were throwing like crazy though because they were down, and he threw for 463 yards.
Oof.
I mean, the Packers were up by 31-3 near the end of the third quarter, and then they let the Cowboys score a few sort of late garbage touchdowns to get within 10.
Yeah, and this Packers-Cowboys matchup is a pretty old rivalry. They've played a ton of times. It's 2 very old, storied franchises, and I think the biggest story is this is the return of Mike McCarthy.
Right. I mean, this could go under either blast from the past or what's going on in Cowboys world.
So they're going to have a lot to play for emotionally. I think they seem to very much like McCarthy as the head coach. His players have always kind of liked him. He's a likable guy. And I would imagine that they really want to get him this win in the team that fired him. So
yeah, I'm sure he wants it too, even though he's feeling... Yeah, but let's just say, Packers fans, cheer McCarthy.
Yeah.
Don't be bad people.
Yeah, I mean, he did a lot
cheer him when he comes out, root for the Packers to win.
He did a lot for the Green Bay franchise.
Be happy that he's there, but be happy to send him home with a loss if it's at all possible.
Please. And it's going to be a tough one. Because what's going on in Cowboys world is they currently have the 3rd best record in the NFC and have won 6 of their last 7, with their only loss being against Philadelphia. In Philadelphia. They have a very solid squad this year. Offense has been middle of the pack to above average, but their defense is very dangerous. Dad, do you want to get into what makes them
straight up nasty?
Yeah, do you want to get into what makes them a tough matchup?
Yeah, because part of what's going on is the defense is leading the league with 33 sacks, and they've already had their bye, and some teams haven't. They're still leading the league in total sack count. Green Bay, in comparison, only has 17, like half as many.
Yeah,
they're 3rd in the league with 9 forced fumbles. For context, Green Bay only has 4. And they are 13th with 7 interceptions, and Green Bay only has 5. They're 1st overall in defense DVOA by Football Outsiders, 3rd against the pass, and 9th against the run. And they really their defense got led up front by Parsons and Dexter Lawrence. And their defense are number 1 in the league in pass rush win rate per ESPN as a team.
Yeah, and I mean, my biggest thing is specifically that pass rush is what I have as their tough, like what makes them a tough matchup. Overall, they're 1st in pass rush grade as a team from PFF. According to ESPN, going into last week, so prior to their bye, the Cowboys led the league in sacks from a standard pass rush, so without a blitz, with 22. Next highest was 20. And then, man, their edge duo of Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence is really, really been causing problems for teams, and really what's holding together this not holding together, it's bad social words, what's really making this defense so threatening. Per PFF, Micah Parsons is 5th in the league in pressures with 39, and Lawrence is 23rd with 27. Parsons has 8 sacks to Lawrence's 4. Per Seth Walder of ESPN, Micah Parsons is 1st in the league in ESPN's pass rush win rate amongst edges, and then also amongst edges, both Parsons and Lawrence are top 10 in double team rate. So this pass rush duo is really causing teams a lot of problems. It's kind of the bedrock of what is making this defense so dangerous, and what's going to cause the Packers a lot of problems, I think. So keep an eye on Bakhtiari's status, because if they don't have him, Zach Tom at left tackle is going to get tested a lot.
Oh yeah, I've got this thing, but note of that later as well. But they'll be searching him out, I think, if that happens.
Yes.
And as we were talking about earlier, the offense is good, but not elite. They're not like the defense, where the defense is one of the best, and possibly by a lot of metrics the best in the league. Defense is more kind of middle in the pack a little bit. They're 10th overall in DVOA, only 15th passing offense, so that's really right in the middle. But their run offense is really good, 3rd overall in rushing.
And it is important to note that the caveat with all of these statistics is they did have Cooper Rush starting for about half of the season, backup quarterback.
True.
So
and I have not
a lot of
gone
those stats
into
are skewed
game by game how they did when with Dak versus without. That's just true. So that you could probably give them a bump in their passing offense
Yes.
Um,
just keep in
what it
just
is
important
with Dak in there.
Yes, and important to keep in mind that Dak has been playing pretty well, but he did have that thumb injury earlier in the year, which was what caused him to miss time. So just keep that in mind with him as well. He's not listed on their injury report, but it is something that he had been battling through.
Right. I mean, he had the surgery on it.
Yes.
As I recall, that he missed 5 weeks. Oh no, maybe it was just the minimum.
I think it was.
It was short. It was less. It was. He came back.
No, it was 5.
He came back. Was it 5 in the end?
It was 5 because
it was
Cooper
4.
Rush. No, it was 4. Yes, because Cooper Rush won 3 and then lost 1, and then I think he came back. But anyway, that's what makes them kind of a difficult team in general. I think is more so their defense, though. They're a pretty decent offense with a good rushing attack and pretty good passing, but the defense is really what makes them a tough matchup. But Dad, what makes them a tough matchup specifically for the Packers?
Right. So their run offense is the best part of their offense. So their strength in offense is our biggest weakness on defense. That's always kind of a scary combination for what's happened to the Packers defense.
And the weakness of our defense has gotten even worse with the Devontae Campbell's going to be missing and Chris Barnes is going to be missing.
And Gary. And then the Cowboys offensive line is top 10 in basically by DVOA in all their metrics. Pass blocking, power rank, which is the ability to convert on 3rd and 4th and short, stuff percentage, second level yards, open field yards, all those things are it. And then their run block win rate by ESPN is 6th. But their pass block win rate by ESPN, they're bad. They're only 30. They're 32nd. They're last in the league in pass block win rate. So that's kind of interesting.
And for me, I think that running attack is the big thing. Ezekiel Elliott, like we said, is coming back this week. But even when he was missing, Tony Pollard is a problem. Do you want to talk about him a little bit?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's been more explosive than Elliott for a couple years now. And he's kind of scary to me. Like, so if you want to talk about how the Packers can move on, because this is moving on into how I think the Cowboys will try to exploit the Packers. Because should I jump into that?
Into how the Cowboys are going to exploit the Packers?
Yeah, because talking about Pollard is sort of the first thing I want to mention. I think the Cowboys are going to run and try to recreate the 2019 San Francisco playoff game against the Packers. And Pollard in the open field against our current linebackers sounds pretty scary to me.
Yeah, tell us how Pollard's going to really challenge the Packers, because I actually am pretty worried about him. I'm almost even more worried about him than Zeke.
Oh, by far. I mean, so right now, Pollard is the 4th best rated running back in the league by PFF and 6th best by Football Outsiders DVOA.
You want to know something crazy? I think it's almost better for the Packers that Zeke is back.
I would rather face Zeke. Zeke has had very little bursts.
I would rather face a combo of Zeke and Pollard than Pollard getting 80% of the touches.
One thing I will say is that Zeke, he still seems to be pretty effective at getting into the end zone on short yardage.
And I will say, I've been more impressed with Zeke this year than last year or the year before, but I still think Pollard is better.
Pollard, yeah. So like I said, and Pollard is the 3rd best rated at actually running the ball by PFF. Neither one of them has actually been all that good as pass catching this year, which I think they've done better in the past. And that may be, as you mentioned before, the Dak being out for those games may have dropped their pass catching ratings down. But I'm a little worried about Pollard just running wild downfield on us when that we're really going to miss Campbell and likely Barnes.
I will say, though, having Nixon does improve your tackling in the secondary, because with Stokes out, Keyshawn Nixon will come in the slot, and then Douglas is still on the field, and Nixon's a much better tackler than Stokes.
Stokes' run defense grades by PFF are terrible.
Yeah.
It scores in the 30s, while league average is around 60 for his run defense. His coverage grades have been okay, but his run defense has been bad.
So that'll help them at least a little bit, but I mean, I'll talk a little bit about Nixon in a second, but do you want to finish up with what you think makes them a tough matchup for us specifically?
So other thing I think how the Cowboys are going to try to exploit them is I think they're going to try as much as they could to force passing downs, then pressure Rodgers like crazy. So Parsons, as you talked about before, he's the 3rd overall edge by PFF and the 2nd best pass rusher. As pass rusher, I think he's only behind Max Crosby. for Vegas, and he lines up on either side. He can line up left or right. So if Bakhtiari can't go, I expect to see him like right over top of Tom. As much as possible.
Man, he's gonna run right through. Tom's been playing very well. He's gonna go right through Tom.
You know what's interesting is I was digging through. Nyman is actually now leading the league in pass block win rate.
From ESPN?
Yeah.
Wow. All right, Nyman. I see you.
Yeah.
I see you.
He's been doing really well.
And I think we talked about
this well for run block win rate as well.
We talked about this briefly on another show, and we weren't entirely certain of the answer. He is going to be restricted next year, so they should be able to bring him back.
Yeah,
pretty.
They just have to give him like a second-round tender or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, another team might take a second-round tender on a starting tackle in this league.
Yeah, they might have to go. They might have to go for a first-round tender. That's entirely possible. Yes,
but we'll talk about that going forward. Do you want to finish up with your mismatches that they have, and I'll hit mine.
Yeah. So one thing, their cornerback coverage grade, besides Diggs, has not been all that great. He's the only one who's above average, and I think he's driven. And he's kind of boom or bust. He can make the big play with a turnover, but he's also flammable in coverage. But their safeties are better, especially Malik Hooker. And he's been helping, I think, with a lot of their coverage. So don't
forget that Malik Hooker was a first-round pick. It's just he really could not stay on the field for the Colts. He's got a lot of talent.
Yeah, he's been playing really well this year for him.
Yeah, and so for me, are you done with your mismatches that they have?
Yeah, so what the Cowboys, I think, will try to do. So why don't you...
Yeah, so I think one thing that they should and could try to exploit is putting CeeDee Lamb in the slot heavily and testing Keyshawn Nixon, who will be coming in to play slot, and they'll be moving Douglas outside with Stokes' injury. CeeDee Lamb already lines up in the slot 58.6% of the time this year per PFF, with a season high against Philly of 71.8% of his snaps in the slot. I'm wondering if they might even surpass that this game, because I think there's a clear drop-off in talent from Douglas and Jair down to Keyshawn Nixon. And Nixon can essentially only play the slot. He's not good on the outside at all, and that does make the Packers' defense a lot more static, and so it'll be easier for the Cowboys to manufacture that mismatch. Additionally, I know we've said that Nixon is better in the slot, and he hasn't been that bad in the slot historically, but he has struggled this year. Per PFF, he's allowed 13 catches on 17 targets for 117 yards. That's 9 yards per reception. Sorry.
Yeah, that's
really has not had a good year. I know he's a backup for a reason, but I would not be surprised at all if they're like, CD, you're playing 80% of your snaps in the slot this game. Just go wild.
It's interesting. It's an interesting point you made that I hadn't really thought about with the current alignment, Nixon only playing in the slot.
Jair can't try.
He can't follow him because he can't then shift Nixon outside.
It's not even an option.
This idea of whether Savage will go to the slot.
And they put Abram back at safety?
Yeah, or something, or Ford. That's something we can talk about. I want to talk about later.
Maybe. I could see them doing that. I think that would work possibly better. But yes, with Nixon in, they cannot have Jair travel with CeeDee Lamb. It won't work because there's no way Nixon can play outside at all. He's a pure slot corner, and he has kind of been struggling the last few weeks.
Okay.
But the Packers...
Are you ready to grasp at straws?
Let's grasp at some straws. I'm a pro straw grasper. I'm a professional. Do you want to start?
Then that means, how do we think the Packers will try to exploit the Cowboys?
Let's do it. Do you want to go first, or I can go? I can go first if you'd like.
Why don't you go first?
I do think there's not a lot, but running the ball per PFF, Cowboys have the 28th best run defense grade, right near the bottom of the pack, which is especially poor when you compare it to their first graded pass rush and third graded coverage grade. Also per PFF. So they're going to have to run the ball and hold the ball essentially and not get into obvious passing downs, because I am worried about Rodgers getting smacked a lot in this game if they have to pass a lot. And they're going to have to not fall down early. They essentially need to keep a game script where they can run the ball. And they need to stick with the run and stay ahead of the sticks. I don't want to see passes. Like, if I see a pass first, second down, I don't care what the box look like. I don't care if there's 11 guys in the box. I just don't care. Please run the ball.
Oh man, yeah, that would be maddening, wouldn't it?
And then I do think you can test their tackles a little bit. It is tough with Gary out, but Terrence Steele's only a third-year player. he did start the season well. His first 5 games, he allowed just 5 total pressures with a pass blocking grade per PFF of 73.14. But over the last 3 weeks, he's allowed 7 pressures with a 43.66 PFF pass blocking grade. So he's really fallen off after those first 5 weeks. I think there's something you can exploit there. He is their starting right tackle. And then their starting left tackle, Tyler Smith, he is a first rounder, but he is a rookie. He has had a decent year so far, but maybe you can kind of confuse him a little bit out there on that left side. He has not played a lot of football this year, or not played a lot of football in his career yet. So those are kind of the 2 things. They really need to run the ball, and I saw that you had that as well. Do you want to touch on what you had for them running the ball?
Yeah, so I was using different metrics than you, interesting, in some ways, but the Cowboys' defense is not as good against the run as against the pass. And so can we expect the Green Bay to run the ball more, please? Jones is the 3rd-rated running back by DVOA and 8th by PFF, so really good in both. The Cowboys' defensive line against the run is also not very good. Their power rank is only 31st, which is a lot worse than Green Bay's, which is 3rd. This is the ability to stop like 3rd and 4th down and short. So maybe we can finally convert some short yardage situations. And their other defensive line run stats are kind of middle of the league. Their defensive line is below average by PFF, as you were mentioning, especially against the run. It's supposedly worse than Green Bay's against the run. And their run stop win rate by ESPN is 29th, which is even worse than Green Bay's at 25th.
Yeah,
so,
like their interior defensive line is not that impressive to me. And their middle linebackers are okay, but they're not that impressive to me either.
When you look down at the ratings for like run stop or run defense, and I was like, they're almost all worse than Green Bay's individuals. And
let's not forget that they're going to be without one of their starting linebackers in Anthony Barr. So these these run stop grades might be even worse than usual for them.
Yeah. And also, I mentioned Nyman's pass blocking. He's
really good in the run. He's had a nice year.
Run block win rate for tackles. So I'm hoping we can run. And
we're running to that right side
and keep running. Yeah, maybe we'll be running to the right side. Though I think Bakhtiari has been actually doing very well when he can play.
Yeah.
In both I think in some of these, like the ESPN grades, he doesn't have enough snaps to qualify for some of those.
That's the thing. Bakhtiari's had an awesome year when he plays.
Yeah.
Like when he's out there, he's still him. Like he's still Bakhtiari.
Both his pass blocking and his run blocking have been very highly graded when he's been able to be out there.
And it just changes the geometry of your offense when you have like real tackles who can just one-on-one pass block. Because being able to put 5 out into the pattern, not having to chip with a tight end every single play, because if Tom plays, we can agree they're going to chip every time, right?
I think they'll have to.
Yeah. And
because I think of times
you have to chip
either Lawrence or Parsons
Micah,
over him.
Yeah.
And but I think though I expect them to have Micah go hunting for him if he's out there.
And it just changes everything because the number of times you have to chip with a tight end, you have to leave a running back in to pass protect. All of those things just make it more difficult for your offense to function and get people open and get good players in space, because when your best players in space are your running backs, and then you got to keep them in to pass block, you're hampering yourself.
You have one less pass catcher out there running a route.
Exactly.
But one thing I was going to say against pass catchers, their weakest coverage is against tight ends, where they're 17th in the league.
Come on, Bobby
And
Tunyon.
all the rest against wide receiver ones, wide receiver twos, wide receiver and running backs, they're all like 11th or better. And I think some of those are like 5th or 6th in the league. So maybe we'll see more out of Tunyon and DeGuara this game. And then their passing offense is not nearly as good as their rushing. Right now, really, the only wide receiver I think to fear is Lamb.
Yeah, although Gallup has been only back 3 weeks now, I think.
It has not been long. But so far this year, he's dominating the team's total air yards and targets.
Yes.
7th in the entire league in Whopper, WOPR, per FTNFantasy.com, which combines both a single metric out of air yards and targets. For basically probably Devontae led the league in that last year for the Packers FC, but it's that kind of usage where same players just getting the ball all the time and getting all the, both the air yards and the targets.
Yeah, I looked at this and I didn't write it down, but he's averaging upwards of 7-8 targets a game, I think, this year. Like he's their whole offense.
Like
in
right.
the passing game, he's almost their whole offense.
And Brown and Gallup have been very meh so far this year.
Yeah, Gallup's still coming back
a little around, right? But
true,
that's
true.
think what we're dealing with still.
Yeah, that's fair. But they are coming off their bye. Could be a little fresher.
Yes, this is true. But what I was thinking is maybe this game, since we only have one real threat as a wide receiver, it won't matter as much being down one of our starting corners.
but like we said,
but I wasn't thinking about the sort of construction of the defense and where people would have to line up. The detail that you went into about where they might be.
Yeah, I mean, I do think they're going to put him in the slot a lot. But yeah, just touching on the Packers' running game. I know Jones isn't carrying an injury designation in this game. Do you think we see more Dillon than usual, though, since he did get a little dinged up last game? And I do believe
that's a good question.
And the Cowboys field is AstroTurf. Another thing to keep in mind, Cowboys field is turf.
It's in Green Bay.
Oh, you were right. You're right. Thank you. Thank goodness.
And it's also, it might be raining, so this might just put a damper on everything.
Well, let's also keep in mind, this is their first game in Green Bay since the Jets game. So they've lost 3 straight on the road.
Yeah.
Do you think... some people on ESPN were saying this. How... do you think the Boo Birds come out if they start bad?
Oh, that would be unfortunate.
I wouldn't be surprised, though. They were 3-3 the last time they left Green Bay, and they came back 3-6. And it hasn't looked pretty.
3 games in the road I have lost track of
Commanders in Washington, and then the Bills on the road, and then the Lions on the road.
Wow, yeah, I forgot it was 3 in a row after that. Yeah, this stretch is not having the bye earlier in the season, I think
they thought they were going to be more competitive. I thought they were going to be a better team.
Has turned out to be, I think, a downside.
And for those of you that don't know, when you play in London, you play overseas, you have the option to choose to have your bye the week after to combat those travel struggles. And the Packers chose not to. They chose to have a late bye. And it's kind of biting them in the butt right now.
I think, right. At the time when they made the decision, probably, we're going to be one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the league.
And we're going to need that rest week late to charge up for the playoffs.
We want to plan our schedule with
playoffs.
That mindset where they're preparing for the stretch run instead of we're going to be a borderline playoff team fighting for our lives. And that might be
injured to hell and back.
Might be a completely different plan if you knew that going in.
Yeah, I think if you had told them that they would be 3-2 after that Giants game, I think they might have taken their bye. Actually, honestly, if you told them they were 3-2, they probably thought that they lost to the Vikings and Tampa, and they weren't going to lose another 3. The thing is, a week 6 bye.
I think you'd have to tell them if you knew you're going to lose
3
the
straight
Jets,
games,
and even just the Jets and the Commanders.
Yeah, I mean, it's been
then
a really
say,
rough
"Oh
go
yeah,
of
we
it.
would have taken the bye with those."
Did you see what Rasul Douglas said though?
We suck because we suck.
Yeah, so if you guys didn't see, they were asking him if all the travel, all the having to play on the road, going from London back to Green Bay, over to Washington, and then over to Buffalo, back over to Detroit, and bouncing around that much and all that travel was part of what caused the team to struggle and all the injuries. And he essentially shut that down and said, we suck because we suck. We are doing the same thing every week, and guys just aren't executing out there. And I appreciated the candor. I appreciated his honesty.
He was blunt. Yeah, he was pulling no punches, not making any excuses.
Yes, and man. So do you want to move on to what we want to see from the Packers in this game?
Sure.
Okay, you want to start us off?
I'll start off. So I'm looking to see more DeGuara. I'd like to see a little bit more DeGuara in this game for one of the things, because I think I'd have to go through this on play-by-play, but the run plays seem more successful with his lead blocking.
Yes, especially if they're going to lean on the run. I want to see more DeGuara as well. But would you agree he has almost no juice in the passing game? I thought he had more juice than that. He can't turn.
I would say whether or not he has any juice with the ball in his hands depends on how he gets the ball. You remember his 60-yard touchdown last year? He has to already be in motion.
He has to be facing
going
forward.
Upfield. He has to be he does not have the agility to turn and accelerate. He has, if he gets the ball in motion, he can get up ahead of steam break some tackles, and show a little bit of elusiveness. However, if he catches the ball facing the line of scrimmage,
it's not going anywhere.
Meaning facing the line of scrimmage if he's past the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, I mean, I do want to see more of him, though, because I think he's been crucial to when they've had success running the ball.
Yeah.
It is tough that they took... Well, I'm not going to worry about that now. Do you want to go on?
Let's forget all the rest of that stuff.
Yeah.
Then another thing I think is going to be critical are Preston and Enagbare setting the edge against the run. It would be critical to have, I think, any chance in this game. Preston's been doing a pretty good job of it. And Enagbare has been improving and showing some good things and getting some pressure, but he's gonna really need him to hold up in the run game. And so we'll have to see how that goes.
Yeah, and do you think the third guy is going to be Garvin?
I guess they activated... did they activate Nalei yet?
I think he's in his window, but I don't know if he's fully activated yet.
Okay. I think it's most likely going to be Garvin. The other possibility would be Tipa coming in if he's activated by the game and ready to go.
They might end up elevating Kobe Jones. I wouldn't be surprised.
Maybe, yeah.
It's going to be tough
slim.
Because that third guy, there's a drop off. There was a drop off already from Gary and Preston down to Enagbare, but now it's a freaking cliff.
It's
like
even
the next
it's an
guy,
even bigger drop off.
Like Garvin has been bad. I would say. I think it's fair to say. Nalia has been hurt, so we don't even know. They had Hamilton in for a game, and he was okay. They've elevated Kobe Jones once, but he hardly played. He mostly played on special teams. Slim pickings.
Pickings are slim.
And did you have anything more you wanted to talk about?
I had a couple more. What I'd like to see, besides just what I think we'd have to get
to even have a chance.
To have a chance. Thinking about the bigger picture, I'd like to see more play for the youth. That's more time for the younger D-line, like Wyatt and Slayton. And I think that also is going to give us a better chance to win because both of those guys are playing better
than Lowry and
Reed.
There's no reason not to play Wyatt. There's no reason. You can't tell me a reason.
He doesn't have very many snaps, but he's looking good when he's in there, both against the run and the pass.
It's mystifying. Mystifying to me how he can't get on the field.
Are his practices look that terrible? Why
is he sucking wind every single play? Like, can he not physically stay on the field? If so, what are we doing? It's just, it'd be one thing if the other guys are helping us more in the run game and he's more of a pure pass rusher at this point, but we're getting ran all over. These guys aren't, Lowry and Reed are not doing anything positive for you. Give the young guys a chance.
Yep.
I don't know.
And then, and also in the same thing, I want to see more from the young wide receivers. Fewer snaps for Watkins, more for Watson and Toure.
Yep. And those are all your...
They're not going to have that many wide receivers to choose from.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to have...
Toure, Lazard,
Watkins. Can't play. You've got Watkins, Lazard, Toure, Watson. That's it.
They're almost certainly going to elevate Winfrey.
Right. So they're going to have to elevate somebody.
Yeah.
Because they don't have...
Here's my other question. With Amari out and Dobbs out, who is returning punts? Is it Nixon? They say that they don't like him at punt returner, though, because they say catching punts and kicks is an entirely different thing.
Should they just have nobody back there at all? And just go for the block and let the ball land?
And let the chips lie where they may.
Let the ball land wherever it happens to fall.
I mean, seriously, though, who else do you think? Maybe Nixon, maybe Levitt.
They had Levitt do some kick returning, didn't they, in the preseason?
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, who would you even put back there? Maybe Kylan, but do you really want to put him back there 2 games in? He's only his second game back. I don't know what they're going to do at punt return, but I would not be surprised to see some punt return issues this weekend. I know.
Well, what about elevate Tyler Goodson?
Maybe. If Amari's their best option, though, that should tell you something about their other options.
This is true.
For me, what I want to see is more of a run-heavy offense. I want to see more carries in the neutral game script. I want to see them try and keep it close so that they can run the ball. And, even if they're down, screw it, run the ball. I don't really care. They're really going to need Kenny and Preston to step up also. Kenny specifically, I feel like we haven't really talked about it much, but he's been pretty disappointing to me this year. Since like week 3 or week 4, I don't think he's had much of an impact at all. And I know it's probably more just he's getting doubled a lot because those other guys, Reed and Lowry, are not pulling their weight. But you really need him to make the plays when he has one guy on him. And I feel like he hasn't really been as much of a playmaker this year as he has been in past years. And for them to stop the run this weekend, I mean, he's going to have the game of his life, especially with no linebacker help behind him. And
his run D grades by PFF are actually poor this year. Maybe the worst of his career. His pass rush PFF grade is still pretty good. But I do feel like the beginning of the year, we saw him a lot making plays in the backfield, and that seems like it's not just not showing up on tape so much. Yeah, and so we really need Kenny to play better and play like the dominant nose tackle that he is, that we know he can be. Then I'm going to need Quay Walker to look better. I know it's a lot on his shoulders, having to wear the green dot, having to call the plays, having to be the main middle linebacker, being a rookie. But that's why you drafted him. That's why he got drafted in the first round. That's why you were a first-round pick. He needs to play like a first-rounder this week and be making stops. Filling the gaps, wrapping people up, bringing them to the ground. I would just hate to look back, because if this continues on this trend, you spent a first on Quay, you spent a first on a 24-year-old Devontae Wyatt who you can't get on the field, you spent 2 seconds on Christian Watson, who can't stay on the field, and even when he is on the field is not much of a factor. Like, is that some of the worst early picks in Goot's tenure if that doesn't work out? So we went into the draft with 5 picks in the first 2 days. And it's one of them, Wyatt. It's just to say it's Walker, Wyatt, Watson, and Sean Ryan, who Walker, is Wyatt, the missing man. 2 picks for Watson, and Ryan, who is never active almost. I guess he was active last week. And I wouldn't, dear listener, I would not blame you if you have no idea who Sean Ryan is. He is a guard out of UCLA, and he hasn't played a snap. Not one. This whole year. Has he not been in on a special teams play? Hasn't played an offensive snap. Are you happy? You happy? Let's see. Sean Ryan. Let's see. Anyway, while you look, I'll fill time. But I do think that if so far the early returns on this draft class are very bad. Very, very bad. I do think that the only thing saving it is that the 2 fourth-round picks are elite, it looks like. And the 5th-round pick looks very good as well. The day 3 looks... If you took all the day 3 guys in first round, I might be like, okay, I see what you were thinking. You swapped, 4th round with 3rd round, it would look pretty good. It would look great. So according to PFF, Sean Ryan has 1 special team snap on a kick attempt. My goodness. He's been inactive all but 1 game, I think. I think he's only been active for one game. But anyway, those are kind of, we don't need to revisit this draft class too much. Those are kind of the things that I'm looking for. Need Kenny to step up, need them to run the ball. Yeah, that's kind of it. Dad, do you want to move on to our players to watch? Sure. Mine is, start with, I mentioned already, Enigbare. A lot of the burden is going to fall on him now for the rest of the year. Can he generate pressure and hold the edge? And then my second is Savage. Do they start working him in as a slot corner now? They've talked about it. Maybe it would improve the defense overall if Ford or somebody who can play better run D is at safety than Savage. Of course, having a slot corner who can't tackle isn't the best thing either. Yeah. And one thing that's interesting is not a player to watch, but our 6th best pass block win rate versus their number 1 ranked pass rush win rate. How is that gonna play out? Yeah. And then my players to watch are Enigbare as well. A lot on his shoulders, but he's looked really good at times this year as a part-time pass rusher. And I know it's going to be harder when the defense is focusing more on you and you don't have Gary out there. But a lot of times he's out there without Gary anyway. That's true. He could have had another sack. He could have had another sack last week. It's true, negated by penalty. But they're going to need a decent amount from him for the rest of the year, in fact. And then Kenny was the other one. They're going to need him to play better, like we already talked about. Don't need to touch much more on that. And then Jonathan Abram, the new guy. I want to see if the idea for him is linebacker.
I think that's actually the move. Is big guy who can hit, not much of a coverage guy. Do they get him some sub-package looks at linebacker? Because I don't know what happened, but McDuffie played like 5 snaps and they said no more. They said we can't do this anymore. So they put Barnes in. And then Barnes got hurt. And then I think they played some Eric Wilson. So I don't know what McDuffie did wrong, but he's not for sure going to get a lot of snaps. It's not guaranteed.
Yeah, that's weird. I mean, well, I guess we'll see.
I think they might just think he's too small. He's not very big. And Quay's not huge. He's very lengthy, but he's not like very heavy.
McDuffie is 227.
That's a pretty small
Quay
linebacker.
Was like 240.
Yeah, but his frame is small. But anyway, those are the ones I want to watch. Any thoughts on those? I think Abram at linebacker has some potential. But the thing is, as hard of a hitter,
if they ever do like a dime backer again.
But as hard of a hitter he is, he's actually not that good a tackler. Like, his tackling grades are pretty meh, I believe. But yeah,
good.
I know.
He'll fit right in.
Exactly. Maybe opposite day strikes. Who knows? But anyway, Dad, do you want to kind of wrap this up with our score prediction?
Yeah, so I'm still thinking it's not going to be that high scoring of a game because of pace of play in a lot of that the Packers use. But I just don't think this is going to be the Packers' week again. So I'm picking against them. I hate to do it. But I have 21-10 Dallas over Green Bay.
Yeah, and I'm almost even more pessimistic than you. I have 24-7 Dallas over Green Bay. They're just a better team than us, especially with all of our injuries. And it would take a pretty Herculean effort, I think, by Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, and Dak just completely throwing the ball away 2 or 3 times for us to win.
I mean, we need a couple interceptions and not turn it over ourselves. A couple turnovers and not to win this game, I think. We must lead
the league in picks and then thrown picks on the very next possession.
Immediately returned ball.
Yeah.
Here, excuse me, sir, I think you lost this.
Have you ever seen that SpongeBob meme? That's yours. Hey, that's mine. All right, now really let him have it. You can have it. That's the Packers' offense right now whenever the defense gives them a turnover. I feel like it's a 50-50 proposition as to they're going to give the ball back. But anyway, Dad, any last thoughts for our good listeners before we wrap things up?
I think that's it. I think I hope we can move the ball and score a couple touchdowns, unlike last week where we moved the ball but couldn't score touchdowns when we had the chance. I mean, so we just have to be more efficient, and we're still playing. So there's still hope is still there.
We'll see.
Any given Sunday,
3-6, maybe hopefully 4-6, but we'll be here with the post game after that game on Sunday. Can't wait to talk to you about it. Hopefully after a Packers win, but we'll be here even if there is a Packers loss. Please come follow us on Twitter at FatherSonPacker for all the latest new Packers news, notes, and articles. Come give us a subscription. Come subscribe to us on YouTube, rather. Father Son Packers podcast would really boost our numbers, and we'd really appreciate it. But anyway, until next time, go Pack, go.
Go Pack, go.